Hi to all viewers of Equinoxe Television, 6 p.m. by 6 o'clock. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of the news. We begin right away with our major stories. Corruption remains a major impediment to the development of Cameroon recently, and despite the putting in place of several anti-corruption commissions in Cameroon, the cankerworm continues to pull the country behind. And also in these news, guys, the major or the minimum wage rate of other African countries continues to increase. Why is that of Cameroon not increasing? It has been stagnant at about 36,000 francs CFA for over 5 years now. We will be telling you more in this edition of the news. Stay with us. Welcome back, viewers. We just told you in the headlines that corruption remains a major impediment to the development of Cameroon today, despite the putting in place of several anti-corruption commissions like CONAC, and also the Special Criminal Tribunal. The cankerworm continues to pull the country behind, and our reporter Innocent Asset tells us that the political figure Pascal Misanga Nyamzin differs that it is all the institutions created to fight are controlled and manipulated by the Secretary General at the Presidency of the Republic. Let's now have more in this report by Innocent Aze.
Despite the creation of several corruption-fighting institutions like the CONAC, Operation Sparrowhawk, the Special Criminal Court, Supreme State Audit Office, and others, corruption still persists alarmingly in most sectors in the Republic of Cameroon. While many Cameroonians attribute this to lack of political will to eradicate the ill, a political figure, Pascal Mesanga Nyamzin, states clearly that it is because CONAC and the rest of the institutions are not independent but married to a groom, which is the State Secretariat headed by Ferdinand Gongo.
Vous allez constater que la CONAC est rattachée au secrétaire général de la présidence de la République. Quand vous prenez le décret de 2011,
if you take the 2011 decree, the CONAC boss is the Secretary General in the Presidency of the Republic.
Qui peut remonter contre l'État. Je suis allé aussi découvrir que
in my research, I also discovered that the General Delegation for National Security is attached and controlled by the Secretary General in the Presidency of the Republic.
De la Sécurité nationale, mais le patron de la DGN, c'est le Secrétaire Général de la Présidence.
Pascal Mesanga Nyamzin also reveals in regret that the Directorate General for External Research, equivalent to the Great FBI, is also in the manipulative hands of the Secretary General in the Presidency of the Republic.
J'ai encore découvert quelque chose de très grave.
This is serious. The head of this institution is answerable to the Secretary General in the Presidency of the Republic. This means the DGRE cannot independently and effectively carry out its duties to denounce and arrest criminals like the FBI does in the United States.
C'est la mafia qui peut dénoncer la corruption est rattachée au secrétariat général de la présidence.
Another revelation made by the political figure is that
je montre aussi que le Monsieur Atanganji,
the Minister of Territorial Administration, who is also Secretary of the National Security Council, that has a vital role in fighting corruption, is affiliated to the Secretary General in the Presidency of the Republic.
Comment on va donc donner de manière autonome le renseignement?
He goes further to say if all heads of these institutions go against their main boss, they will be stripped of their functions.
Dans ce cas, si la DGN se donne le renseignement, elle peut être neutralisée.
He tells Cameroonians that corruption can only be aborted if these instruments are totally independent, like the FBI.
Écoutez, lorsque le FBI, dans certaines circonstances de corruption ou de mafia, se saisit, le FBI vous livre à la justice.
Though some corrupt state officials have been arrested and detained, some political analysts and critics refuse to hail CONAC, the Operation Sparrowhawk, and other corruption-fighting mechanisms. They rather think it was merely a way used by the head of state to eliminate his political opponents and officials from his own political party that he thinks have grown to accumulate too much power and are starting to become a threat to him.
And now, as the temperature rises to the convened senatorial election in Cameroon, political observers say everything is set to end up with an all-CPDM Senate. For me, Armstrong Sanders says the narrative is contained in the number of councils controlled by the CPDM in Cameroon and other political factors. Let's now have his report.
Fever grips the nation ahead of the convened senatorial election. The argument that it is an all-CPDM affair which will end up in an all-CPDM Senate is taking central stage. Going by the old political narrative that politics is a game of numbers, and considering the reality that the ruling CPDM party controls 90% of councils in Cameroon, observers say chances for an opposition win are near zero. Mathematically, the ruling CPDM party controls 316 out of 360 municipal councils in Cameroon, 16 in the north, 29 in the south, 65 in the center, 30 in the west, 32 in the east, 13 in the Adamawa region, 31 in the southwest, 33 in the northwest, 39 in the far north, and 28 in the littoral region. A complex situation with the opposition, which is left with a miserable 44 councils, making up 10% to share. Considering that municipal councillors constitute the electoral college in a senatorial election, the ruling CPDM party thus controls a majority of this electoral college and stands to win in all of the 10 regions of Cameroon if voting stays within party lines and voters within party discipline. Going by this argument, the opposition party capable of pulling a shot should be the NUDP, the National Union for Democracy and Progress Party, with 16 councils in the Adamawa, the East, the North and the Far North region. The party went above party lines to secure voters, winning the 2020 regional election in the Adamawa region. Close to the National Union for Democracy and Progress is the Cameroon Party for National Reconciliation, with 7 councils in the Nyong and Kili of the center, the Cameroon Democratic Union, the CDU, with 6 councils in the Noon of the West region, then the SDF with 4 councils in the Littoral, the West and the Northwest region. Away from the logic of councillors voting candidates of their party, other political parties should be counting on litigations, political deals, and a robust campaign to convince voters from other political parties, as the SDF did in the West and the Adamawa region in 2013. The party applied and won with this formula in 2018 in the Northwest region. The last hope, however, lies in the hands of the President of the Republic, who in the current mandate appointed 1 senator each from the National Alliance for Democracy and Progress, the National Salvation Front, the Republican Defense Movement, and the UPC political parties.
And now we turn to the headlines that the minimum wage of other neighboring African countries have increased from about 28 to 70,000 francs CFA, talking about countries like Cote d'Ivoire and also Togo, but that of Cameroon has remained stagnant, that is at 36,200 and 70,000 francs for over 5 years now. Our reporter Lucy Liengu Asia spoke with some economists here in Douala. They now attempt an answer for the blockade.
Despite the hike in the prices of basic commodities and increase in the standards of living, workers' salaries have remained the same, with a minimum wage rate of 36,270 francs CFA. 2 years ago, on the International Labour Day, the Minister of Labour and Social Security, Gegra Owona, announced that discussions to increase the minimum wage rate were underway. Since then, Cameroonians have been waiting in vain. An economist, Edmond Kwate, says there are some constraints.
If you consider the structure of the budget of Cameroon today, which is like the budget of Cameroon is at 6,300 billion CFA. If you take like 2 lines, if you take the salary of the personnel, and if you take the debt service, internal and external debt service, you have already 3,000. Only those 2 lines are already 3,000 billion. is too much. So today, Cameroon cannot afford to increase the salary simply because, I mean, if you consider the structure of the budget, Cameroon, the budget will not be able to support, to stand this the increase of the salary.
Another economist, Dr. Equinoxe, thinks the minimum wage of a Cameroonian cannot be increased without the consent of syndicates and GCAM.
An increase in the minimum wage should be a consensus. In Cameroon, it is a consensus. In other words, it's an initiative by the government, but in consultation with the civil society, syndicate, and also the GCAM, the organization representing the corporate private sector. So it's a consensus. It's not just a decision from the government, because the SMIC impact mostly the employee of the private sector. You know, the government can decide unilaterally to increase the salary of the employee of the public sector. But as far as the employee of the private sector are concerned, according to our regulation, there should be a consensus, meaning the government should discuss with the syndicate, civil society, and also with the GCAM, which represent the corporate private sector, and agree on an amount together.
The situation, according to some Cameroonians, is becoming unbearable as they find it difficult to manage their resources. What then can be done? Economists propose possible solutions.
If you look in Cameroon, for example, a lot of product perish in farm because of poor road condition. A lot of product perish in fridge because of lack of electricity. So in the longer term, an effective way to fight inflation in Cameroon should be to build more road, should be to build more hydropower infrastructure to produce more electricity, so that you will have more product leaving farm to the market. Fewer product will perish in farm because of product conditions.
Before 2008, the minimum wage rate in Cameroon was at 28,000 francs, but after a coalition of 12 central labor unions, it was increased to 36,270 francs CFA, which till date has not been changed. Cameroonians therefore hope for the government to raise the minimum wage rate so as to help the population manage inflation.
Well, we'll be talking more on the reason the minimum wage in Cameroon has been difficult for it to increase from 36,000 francs that would be in the second part of the news. And now economic stakeholders in the public and private sectors in Cameroon have been schooled on the 2023 state budget. Challenges and also obstructions to a 100% execution were identified and solutions prescribed. This was during the launching of the state budget today in Douala. Babila Jonathan was there. He tells us more.
The 6,345.1 billion francs CFA 2023 state budget of Cameroon is now officially on the
We left with the task of exercising its role.
Finance Minister Louis-Paul Motazi and his collaborators edified stakeholders on innovations, specificities, and execution exigencies.
The creation of special treatment centers at the level of regional controls and divisional controls that will enable authorizing officers to execute their budget themselves, and the financial controller will be left with the task of exercising its role as the judge of regularity of expenditures. Another innovation is the optimization of the mobilization of non-fiscal revenues. Non-fiscal revenues that are like service revenues.
In her presentation, the Director of Budget Control and Audit at the Ministry of Finance pointed out several obstacles that can influence the attainment of objectives of the budget.
The fluctuation of price of primary consumer goods. And then we know this is as a result, not only as a result of the war between Russia and Ukraine, but also with the present dispensation that we find ourselves. We are just coming from the COVID era. We are still to stabilize the aftermath of COVID pandemic. We also have a war that is going on. Secondly, most people don't respect the budget execution deadline. Most of them don't want to respect the procedures.
Another obstacle is the poor understanding of the execution framework and mechanism, notably by municipal officials.
Most councils don't know that the budget should be executed from 1st January to 31st of December. Most of them, they incur a lot of delay in the contract award process, and by the time the contract is attributed, the contractor does not have ample time for execution to take place, and then payment to be done in the system before the 31st of December.
For the budget execution rate to be improved, the objectives attained, and the socio-economic situation of the country and her people upgraded, experts urge the strict respect of laid down procedures by all stakeholders.
And now we take you to Bamenda. After 1 month of mourning the passing away of Fon Nangwafo III of Mankong, agricultural activities have resumed in Mankong. It was marked by celebration of the Fon's life, and the people also used the opportunity to complain about the absence of electricity and other social amenities in Mankong to the newly enthroned Fon. Mala Glory completes the story for us.
Within the 1 month period dedicated to the mourning of Fon Nangwafo III, natives and inhabitants of Mankong were not allowed to go to their farms, their bushes, hunting or carry out any related economic activity. The period was characterized by traditional dances, cultural displays, gastronomy, and visits from friendly kingdoms across the Anglophone regions. Throughout this time, the Mankong people received a delegation from the Wimbom land led by the Fons, a delegation from the Sot land, Biame, Lebialem, Way Village, and Queen, just to name a few. The reigning Fon of Mankong preached peace as he welcomes his guests to his palace.
I would like to get into the footsteps of my father because he was a peacemaker. So I am preaching peace for the other Fondoms and the whole of the region.
An event which permitted the natives to present their worries to the new chief, such as water crisis, lack of electricity, and bad roads.
To the Mankong people, they have already expressed it. They need a lot. I know they need roads, they need water, they need light, and so many other things.
Most delegations, alongside their Fons, came to the Mankong Palace with traditional dances to grace the occasion.
And now we take you out of our national frontiers first in neighboring Nigeria, where a Catholic priest has been burnt to death by attackers who tried in vain to get into the parish house, and onto the DRC in Congo, where at least 10 persons have been killed in a bomb attack. In Burkina Faso, jihadists kidnapped 50 women. Immaculate Fogwe has a thorough news roundup.
Reverend Isaac Achi was killed in Piakoro area of Niger State in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. After failing to gain entry into his house at 3 a.m., the attackers decided to burn him to death, while another priest, identified as Father Collins, who tried escaping, was shot on the leg. He is currently receiving treatment in a hospital. And in the Democratic Republic of Congo, at least 10 people were killed and 39 others wounded on Sunday in a bomb attack carried out on a church in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. According to the Congolese military spokesman Anthony Mwalashi, the attack on a Pentecostal church in northern Kivu was carried out by the Islamic Jihadist sect. The survivor of the evangelical church said they had gathered for a baptism ceremony before the bomb detonated. DRC's presidency condemned the act while promising to hunt the perpetrators. Meantime, in Nepal, at least 68 people are confirmed to have died in a plane crash. The plane was en route from the capital Kathmandu to Pokhara, where it crashed with 72 people on board. A committee to investigate the crash has been formed by the government. In Burkina Faso, about 50 women were kidnapped by Islamist militants in Soum in Burkina Faso's northern province. The women were kidnapped while they were searching for fruits and plants in the bush.
And now we talk sports. Cameroonians resident in Qatar are at loggerheads over funds to cover the FIFA World Cup. A reporter, Smanjikan Gabriel, tells us that the president of the community, Rene Mebenga, says the dean of the community, Biyaka Mustafa, is to be held accountable for the money meant to cover the World Cup in Qatar. Let's now have the report of Smanji Gabriel.
Close to 1 month since the FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022 ended on the pitch, the competition is still on amongst Cameroonians who reside in Qatar. The 15,000 euro, which is almost 10 million francs CFA, that was given by the ambassador Iya Tijani to the Cameroonian community in Qatar, is tearing them apart as the money is not yet shared till date. This money had to serve a purpose.
The purpose was clear, was to make sure that we mobilize Cameroonian during the game, the Cameroonian game. You know, that was it. It was straightforward. It was too late to really try to mobilize, to do anything with the money, and we received the money very late in the night, less than 24 hours of the second game of Cameroon.
According to the president of the Cameroonian community in Qatar, René Mebenga, the dean of the community, Biaka Mustafa, kept the money away from them, but the latter refutes the allegations, saying they wanted the money to be used for a party.
Yeah, I'm in Cameroon. I'm taking my vacation. Anyway, yeah, the money should not yet shared because they think they are so smart. I tell them you should create a committee to tell me how to use the money. You know what they bring out? They say I have to give them 14,000 Qatari Riyal, almost 7 million to make a party. I tell them they are smart. Till now, I tell them they have to normally, if I want to give them the money for organize some party, it can't be more than 20,000. I told them to create a group of people where they have to collect to receive that money, and they have to sign down. I leave them the money to collect.
But according to René Mebenga, he gave suggestions to the dean on how the money could be used.
I tried to give my suggestion on what we can do with the money. Among one of the more important things, listed the General Assembly, because you remember very well we failed to organize the General Assembly because of financial issue and other activities that were around it. And at the same time, we had election. So we did not have the fund because, you know, the community or communities, our organization is a non-profit organization. I had an idea that we knew very well that not all people can go and watch the game. Okay. So, and my proposal was that those who can go and watch the game, fine. Those who cannot, we need to rent a place where Cameroonian can go and watch the game and enjoy themselves. So they can cater some Cameroonian with part of the money, not all the money. Unfortunately, he was mute. He went mute for 2 days and then realized that this is becoming not good.
The dean of the Cameroonian community in Qatar, Biaka Mustafa, says he is willing to give the money only when a neutral commission has been set up.
Any day where they will be ready, the money will be down. That is, I told them. So I don't care. They already write for everybody. They write to the ambassador. They write for everybody. But I answer to them. I told them why. I don't know why the people can tell me to drop the money. Do not have not organization of meeting. Who say the new president?
As it stands, several complaints have been written against the dean of the Cameroonian community in Qatar, hoping that he will give a favorable response by showing the money given to him, which it is alleged had already been changed into Qatari Riyal. Authorities in the country have been alerted to this situation and are expected to act fast for this money to be used without problems amongst nationals in Qatar.
You rightly heard in that report the money was given to the Cameroonian community in Qatar to mobilize Cameroonians for the World Cup which just ended in that country. And viewers, so that was it for the first part of the news. Don't go away, Talking Points comes up next. Welcome back, viewers. We are talking about the minimum wage in Cameroon. It stands at 36,270 francs CFA, and we have noticed that the minimum wage of other countries have increased, but that of Cameroon has been stagnant for some time now, and it is difficult for Cameroonians, an average Cameroonian, to live within 36,000 francs a month. So we spoke with an economist, our guest tonight. is Song Derrick. Song Derrick is an economist. Song Derrick, thank you so much for accepting to be our guest tonight on Talking Point. Why is it that the minimum wages of other African countries who have the same economic situation somehow like Cameroon has been increasing because they want to give their local population a better standard of living, but that of Cameroon has been stagnant for over 4 or 5 years now?
Good evening, and good evening to the million viewers of Equinoxe. It's always a pleasure to be here, and I'm grateful for the trust and the confidence you've given me to be here on this platform to share a worrying situation that touches the very core of Cameroonians, the very core of the suffering masses of Cameroonians, which is the issue of salaries, and in this case, the minimum wage rate. It saddens my mind and it saddens Cameroonians to know that the minimum wage rate in this country is as low as 36,270 francs. And with 36,270 francs, we least expect or we least know what we can do with that amount of money. If you're asking me the reasons that we can advance for this situation, why the minimum wage rate is this low. First, I will tell you that the first thing is that our economy is weak. And the reason why the economy is weak is because we have refused to produce local, to stay local, and to consume local. And so the companies are not there. Secondly, I want to tell you that the war in the southern Cameroons has crippled the economy in this country so much that so much money is used, geared and channeled towards purchasing of ammunition, fueling of armor cars that are going to kill Cameroonians, a very human resource that is needed, that this country should grow from strength to strength. Also, you know that Cameroon is faced by many crises situations. We could talk about the Central African crisis, the Boko Harams in the far north, the Southern Cameroon wars, and then worst of it, the worst thing that is keeping us at this level is the fact that there's a lot of leakages in the economy. Remember, we are crying about minimum wage rate, but we are seeing people arresting others for the theft of 85 million in their homes. We have seen ministers with 500 million in their homes. The former minister of health, we have seen the minister of the former minister of defense, Alain Edgar Mebengo, in prison for alleged embezzlement of billions of francs, 95 billions, this money in the hands of individuals. We have also seen the former director in charge of salaries with fake accounts, up to 2,000 fake salary accounts. Where is this money going to? So you realize that one of the greatest problems in Cameroon is the fact that embezzlement has eaten so deep into the fabric of the country that few individuals are controlling money, whereas the suffering masses of Cameroonians do not have access to that money.
There you talk about corruption and embezzlement. If people embezzle, it means that the money is there before embezzlement can take place. So some observers think it is a lack of political will. That is one of the reasons that the minimum wage of Cameroon has been stagnant for some time now. Are you of that same opinion that it might be lack of political will?
Of course, I think that Cameroon is limping. Economically, Cameroon is limping. Politically, Cameroonians have been failed, and socially, we don't know where we belong. And one greatest problem is that the Cameroon leaders need leadership. If the leaders are willing, they can increase. What is somebody going to do with 36,270 francs? Let's assume that in a town like Douala, where everything is expensive, a modern room will be let's say an average modern room could be 25,000 francs. If you have a job, you have to pay a room 25,000 francs. You have to take your transport every day. Let's assume you spend as cheap as 500 francs for transportation. For 30 days, that is 15,000 francs. Let's assume at work, during lunch, you have to take just a plate of food as cheap as 500 francs, which is rare in Douala. That would be 15,000 francs a month. What are you going to save? It means at the end of the month, we have not even talked about the feeding in your house. We have not talking about health. We have not talked about your dressing. At the end of the month, you realize that a lot of Cameroonians will be living and surviving by de-saving. By de-saving, and means that I'm saying that Cameroonians are going to borrow money in order to fuel their bills. And every other month, we are going to involve in debt. 36,270 francs as minimum wage rate is a way of punishing Cameroonians by telling Cameroonians that if your employer is paying you 38,000 francs, the employer is doing you a favor. The employer is paying at least above what the government has stated. And worst of all, let me say to you, Anne, that if you are talking about 36,000 francs, 36,270 francs. CMPS alone is going to still take part of that money. It's going to take at least 6,662 francs, which is partly paid by the employer and partly paid by the employee. Which means by the end of the day, you, the employer that is paid 36,000 francs, you're going to go back home with maybe 33,000 francs. It's disheartening, and we must affirm with you that the political will is lacking. The economics too is lacking because we do not have the industries. We export timber and import toothpicks. Where are the companies even? So we are limping, we are leaning on the foreign economy. That's why, for once, I had to share with the president's speech when he said that we're going to boost the home industries. But unfortunately, he has talked about slogans. We have celebrated slogans. It is very possible in Cameroon that we are told that we are going to start paying mobile money tax in December, and in January it is implemented. We are going to start paying physical stamp in December, and in January it is implemented. But the industries, what is productive, we say it, and 30 years after, nothing happened. If care is not taken, and I must tell you that in 2035, where we think Cameroon is going to emerge, Cameroon is going to emerge into poverty. Cameroon is going to emerge into indebtedness. And it is you and I that are going to suffer, that are going to pay the debts of this nation.
Mr. Song, Derek, you mentioned investments. We are going to come to the question of investing in the country. But now let's talk about the most recent finance law. When you look at the finance law, we realize that the cost of fiscal stamps have increased, importation tax has increased, and that is also going to affect negatively other sectors. And now looking at the horizon, life is going to be a little more difficult for Cameroonians this year, 2023. And now, keeping the not willing, like you mentioned, to increase the minimum wage in Cameroon, is it not impoverishing the already poor Cameroonian?
You know that taxes are automatic stabilizer economically. But the sad story is that Cameroon is presently heavily indebted. We are indebted to international IMF, International Monetary Funds. We're indebted with the World Bank. And remember, when you owe people so much that you cannot pay, the people start coming into your economy to find ways. That is why something like mobile money tax is an organized theft by the government. It's real organized theft in complicity with the communication company to steal the local person. How do you explain the fact that my child is going to school, I have to send school fees through mobile money, I pay taxes. And when the child goes to withdraw the money, the child pays taxes. That is taxing you right to your wallet, right to your pocket. So I think the finance law, sometimes, when I think of the finance law and those who vote it, I think that they are there for their belly. They are doing they are bellyticians. They think about themselves. After all, do they really feel the pinch of the common man? After all, do they really represent you and I? After all, were they really voted genuinely? Are they really representing the worries of the constituency? If they are really representing the worries of the constituency, the worries of the common man, how many times do they go back with the balance sheet to present to the people that this is the bill they had wanted us to vote? What is your opinion about this bill? But unfortunately, because the bill comes from the number one statesman, from the commander-in-chief of armed forces, from the number one patriotic man, and once it comes to the parliament, they have no other thing but to veto it, to vote it, because they don't feel the pinch. They are the ones chopping the state's money. They don't go to the market to feel that the price of granite oil has increased from 1,000 to 1,600, more than 50%. Physical stamp from 1,000 to 1,500, 50%. And every other basic commodity that is increasing with fuel in the process of being increased. They don't care, because it is only in Cameroon where a minister will fuel his car for hundreds of millions in a month. We have seen those reports. It's only in Cameroon where a bag of cement will cost 16,000 francs instead of 4,250 francs. It is only in Cameroon where a trip of sand will cost 700,000 francs. It's sad because those people manipulate the money. They steal the money. They are not accountable to anybody. It is you and I who are here asking questions. I'm sure this interview you're doing, or these things we are talking about, it still doesn't pinch them. It still doesn't matter, because whether we survive or not, as long as Yaoundé is breathing, as long as the minister are eating and they are full, as long as they have their cars, their fuel allowances, their house allowances, it doesn't matter if we die. It doesn't really matter to them. Seriously.
Okay. And Song Derek, talking about investment, massive investment can be a proposed solution, because massive investment means massive recruitment or employment and massive production. But that seems to be far-fetched in our context. Why?
Yes, you know, investment, normally for every country to grow, they need investment. Be it home investment, foreign investment. But investment goes with characteristics of stability. Is the economy stable? Once the economy is stable, then investors will be invited automatically. Secondly, the laws. How favorable are the laws? And how transparent are the rules, the regulations that regularizes people to invest? If they are transparent, then it's cool. But I would think that Cameroon before now has been favorable, but the leaders had not opened their arms to investment. Because when we talk about investment, we should understand that the investment should favor the home industry. Remember, in Cameroon now we have investment, but how much does the investment favor the home industry? We have seen Cameroon government encouraging TSA, 1xBet, betting companies to invest. The question is, how favorable are those companies to Cameroonians? We have seen the Chinese government with the small kiosk, and you drop your 100 francs coin, you win something, and they take the 100 francs coin, they travel with it and produce chain to come and sell it to you at 10,000 francs. It is the government that approved them. According to the government, that is investment. So I think that, like I said, the Cameroon leaders need leadership. They need to put the common man, they need to put you and I at the center of it all. And if they do that, first, we need to look into our tax system. The company tax in Cameroon is 30% plus 10%, which is 33.33. That's too high. Meaning that if you are making a profit of 100 million, you have to pay the government 33 million. That's too much. The value added tax in Cameroon is 19.25%. Nigeria, neighboring Nigeria, is at 5. When it was increased to 7, they were almost going to the street. So we need to look at our tax system in able to be able to make it to favor investment, so that we invite the Cameroonians. Every economy survives because of the private sector, not the government sector. Unfortunately, the Cameroon is different because it is a salarized economy. It's an economy that believes in matricule numbers. If you are not employed by the government, then you cannot survive. Whereas it would have been the other way around. It should have been the private sector boosting the economy. And for the private sector to boost the economy, it is for the government to encourage, to subsidize, to give them leeways to grow. And by doing that, they employ Cameroonians, so that the Cameroonians who are employed, we are going to reduce microbes. We are going to reduce theft. But unfortunately, who cares? Who really cares? Because it will never affect them. The politicians who think more about their bellies than you and I that they are supposed to represent.
Mr. Song Derrick, thank you for those clarifications there. We are about going to the end of our discussion. But before we part company, we have to, you are an economist, and we have to join our voices to canvass for change, positive change in this country. What should be done concretely to ensure that Cameroonians have a better standard of living, improve the living conditions of Cameroonians?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for the trust. I would say the first things first is that the government must look for ways that will boost home production. We must produce local, we must consume local, and we must stay local. The government should go into more of capacity buildings. Our university must be changed from English-speaking university, grammar-blowing university, to university that we're going to create people that will create something after graduation. That is very important. And then also, the government must lay down mechanisms to do checks and balancing of corruption, embezzlement. You realize that one of the cankerworms that is eating deep into the fabrics of Cameroon is embezzlement. And the reason why there is embezzlement is because the president is going to ask you, où sont les preuves? If those who embezzle, because I believe that embezzlers are killers. They are killing our destinies. If we have to do checks of the embezzlers, we're going to help. Build our home industries, build capacities of the youth, build more industries that will employ us, improve our technology. If we are sending somebody out of the country to learn technologically, we are bringing back the person to develop in the country. I think if we do that and more, that other economists, they have advised the country, other people have advised this country. It is just because we have a deaf leadership that don't want to listen. And the simple reason why they don't want to listen is because they don't really care. They don't really care. What we keep saying seems to be noise. A lot of people more intelligent than myself have given advice to the government. But like the civil society that we represent, we will keep talking until Yaoundé, until the leaders decide to change. We will keep playing our part for the common man to be raised to a better level in order to survive. Cameroon belongs to you and I. And if Cameroon has to survive, it is you and I that are surviving. It is you and I that have to build it. If we play our little role with a good leadership, then we will survive. Remember, I always say that people say Africans are made up of dictators. Yes, Africa needs enlightened dictators to grow. Unfortunately, the kind of dictators we have protect more of their seats, more of their bellies, than protecting the common man who has given them power on loan, on borrow to keep. But it's sad.
Thank you, Song Derrick, for accepting to be our guest tonight. And viewers, thank you so much for being with us.
Equinoxe Télévision, au-delà de l'image, nous rendons compte.
If you suspect you may have a coronavirus infection, please call your healthcare provider in advance and let them know you are coming. This can help them be prepared. WHO recommends preventive measures to reduce your risk. Wash your hands frequently using soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth. Avoid eating raw meat and unnecessary contact with wild animals. Avoid close contact with anyone with flu-like symptoms. When coughing and sneezing, cover your mouth and nose with a flexed elbow or use a tissue. Take particular precaution while traveling. Seek medical care early.
Entretenir la clôture de sa propriété agricole. C'est une tâche récurrente pour le fermier Nicolas Wamba. Il vit à quelques kilomètres de Nairobi, la capitale kenyane, et il espère qu'avec ses nouveaux poteaux, il va pouvoir gagner un peu d'argent et de temps.
Compared to the normal pause,